how to make your own sea turtle fence art. Now, I started out by finding a design that I liked online and just enlarging it and printing it out on a whole bunch of sheets of 8.5 by 11 and taping them together. I used that as my template. I drew it out on a large piece of 3/4 inch PVC, which I purchased down at Home Depot. This stuff's expensive, but I like working with it better than wood because it'll never dry rot. It hopefully will last forever. I took a scrap piece and added it to the head using fiberglass Bondo as the glue. That holds it together very securely, and I just adds a little bit of additional height to the head. I then used the main tool for this job, which is an angle grinder with a flap sanding wheel. I used a 60 grit, and this stuff grinds very easily. So I just rounded over all the edges on the shell, kind of started to shape it. I shaped the head, kind of tapered it down into the neck area, and then started rounding over and matching up the outline of the two pieces. I also ground down and rounded over each one of the fins. And I didn't touch the shell area of the bottom piece. This sea turtle is going to be constructed of two pieces. The bottom has the head and the wings, or the fins rather, and the top piece is just going to be the shell. So here I use that same angle grinder to start shaping the beak. And you just go very slowly. You move a very little bit at a time. Not very difficult at all. You just follow the outline. And you don't have to end up with a perfectly smooth or perfectly rounded over edges with that angle grinder, because the next step is going to an oscillating sander. And I rounded over everything again with the oscillating sander with an 80 grit paper, and then went over it quickly with a 120. So everything was finished sanded to 120 grit. Now, I used a little Dremel grinder with a cutting wheel to create the grooves for the shell. You don't cut in real deep. You just want to create maybe about 1/8 to 1/4 inch depth, and just follow the outline. Add some character into the shell. You figure the shell is the largest portion of this project, and it's certainly going to, attract your eye to it first, when you see it on the fence. So this is the finished shell ready for paint. That's going to just lay right on top of the base piece, and I'll glue that on again with the Bondo fiberglass. I used a different Dremel bit just to grind out the eye, and then I started painting. I used the lightest color blue for the background of the shell, and you don't have to use blues. This is just what kind of matched the other fish that are on my fence already. I used a darker blue just to add some highlights so it just wouldn't be one tone. For the fins, I did the same thing. This is the bottom piece. I sprayed everything with the light blue, including the head. I taped off the eye because I'm going to use the white of the PVC as the background for the eye. And then I mist it over, and I made the edges a little bit of a darker blue. Really just so there's some variation. Did the same thing for the head. And then I taped off with painter's tape each one of the fins as well as the head, and I cut out some shapes for the spots on the fins as well as the head. And then I just went over each of those with a darker blue so they would really stand out. When you remove the tape, you have the spots that are on each one of the turtle's fins. Here's the Bondo again, and I use the Bondo fiberglass just because that's what I have. I'm sure you could also glue this together with PVC glue or almost any type of epoxy, but the Bondo does work, and it will hold forever. Now I'm going to coat this entire thing with a very high gloss resin. This is from TotalBoat.com. It's called their Maker Epoxy, and you mix the two parts slowly together for 5 minutes. I poured it directly onto the piece and then used a disposable brush just to spread it out. Any bubbles that are in the mix, you can dissipate those by heating it up a little bit with a butane torch. You don't want to really make that resin super hot or burn it. You just very quickly go over it, and you do that a couple of times during the drying process. And this is the finished product. Please check us out on the web at DIYeasycrafts.com. Thank you.